The lighthouse went dark, just as a fishing boat disappeared into the storm. On that lonely cliff stood one frightened woman, and she had only minutes to decide whether fear would control her or courage would. Her name was Maya. Just 1 month earlier, she had buried the only person who had ever believed she was stronger than she believed herself to be. Her grandfather. For 40 years, her grandfather had been the keeper of the old lighthouse. Every evening, before the sun disappeared beyond the horizon, he climbed the narrow spiral staircase carrying a small brass lantern. It didn't matter if the sea was calm or if a violent storm shook the cliffs. He never missed a single night. The villagers often said, "As long as the lighthouse shines, everyone will find their way home." But Maya knew. The real light was never the lamp. It was the man who refused to let it go dark. Only a few weeks before he passed away, her grandfather called Maya to the top of the lighthouse one last time. The evening sky glowed with shades of orange and purple. The sea was unusually calm, as if even the waves knew this moment mattered. Without saying a word, he placed an old brass pendant into her hand. It was shaped like the lighthouse itself. "This belonged to your grandmother," he said softly. "Now, it belongs to you." Maya smiled. "I don't know the first thing about running a lighthouse, Grandpa," he chuckled. "You don't need to know everything today. You only need the courage to learn when the day comes." She laughed nervously, certain that day would never arrive. Neither of them knew. It was their final sunset together. A week later, the lighthouse stood silent. Its keeper was gone. The village gathered beneath gray skies to say goodbye. Fishermen removed their caps. Children placed white flowers beside the old stone path. Even the sea seemed quieter than usual. After the funeral, the village mayor walked toward Maya carrying a small wooden box. Inside were the lighthouse keys, her grandfather's weathered journal, and a folded document. "The lighthouse is yours now," he said gently. Maya stared at the keys. Her hands began to shake. "I can't do this. I don't know anything about keeping a lighthouse." The mayor smiled kindly. "Neither did your grandfather. On his first day." Those words stayed with her, long after everyone else had gone home. 3 weeks passed. Every morning, Maya unlocked the lighthouse. She swept the dusty floors, polished the old brass railings, and read page after page from her grandfather's journal. She learned the names of every lever, every gear, every bolt that kept the great light alive. But one thought never left her mind. What if something goes wrong? Every evening, she looked toward the sea and whispered, "Grandpa, I hope I'm making you proud." Then, one night, the wind changed. Dark clouds rolled across the horizon. The peaceful sea became restless. The first drops of rain struck the lighthouse windows. Within minutes, the worst storm in years had arrived. The storm struck without mercy. Rain hammered against the lighthouse windows. The wind howled through every crack in the old stone walls. Maya climbed the spiral staircase, just as her grandfather had done thousands of times before. She reached the lantern room and smiled with relief. The great light was still shining, but only for a moment. The beacon flickered. Once, twice. Then, darkness. The lighthouse went silent. Maya's heart pounded. "No! Please, not tonight." She rushed to the control panel. She pulled every lever, checked every switch. Nothing. The light refused to return. Far below, she heard the mournful blast of a ship's horn echo through the storm. Someone was out there, lost in the darkness. For one terrifying moment, Maya froze. Her mind raced. Call for help. She grabbed the old emergency radio. Only static answered. The storm had knocked out the signal. She reached for her phone. No service. She looked down the cliff road. A massive landslide had buried the only path to the village. No one could reach the lighthouse, and she couldn't reach anyone. Tears filled her eyes. "I can't do this." Then, her hand brushed against her grandfather's worn journal. It had fallen open on the floor. One sentence was underlined. "When the light fails, don't panic. Find the cause. Every problem leaves a trail." Maya wiped away her tears. She took a slow, steady breath. For the first time that night, she stopped waiting for someone to save her. Maya carried the toolbox to the lantern room. Her hands still trembled, but they no longer stopped moving. She opened the old maintenance journal. Every page held her grandfather's careful notes. Simple, clear, patient. Always begin with the power source. She knelt beside the great machine. The gears were covered with years of salt and dust. One wire had broken loose. Another connection was badly corroded. It isn't broken. It's asking to be repaired. For the first time, she wasn't looking at the lighthouse with fear. She was looking at it with understanding. Outside, the desperate sound of the fishing boat's horn echoed once more through the darkness. There wasn't a second to waste. Maya tightened the final bolt. She stepped back and reached for the main power lever. For a brief second, she hesitated. What if it still doesn't work? Then she remembered her grandfather's voice. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to move anyway. She wrapped both hands around the lever, pulled it down with all her strength. The machinery groaned. The giant gears began to turn. Slowly, painfully, the lantern started to rotate. A tiny spark flashed inside the great lens. Then, a brilliant beam of light burst through the darkness. It swept across the raging sea. Again, and again. Far below, the fishing boat changed course. The captain had found the lighthouse and found his way home. By sunrise, the storm had finally passed. Golden light spread across the quiet sea. One by one, the fishing boats returned safely to the harbor. The captain of the boat stepped onto the dock. He looked toward the lighthouse, then removed his cap. If that light hadn't returned, we wouldn't be standing here today. The villagers turned toward Maya. She lowered her eyes. She didn't feel like a hero. She felt like someone who had simply done what needed to be done. The village mayor smiled. Your grandfather kept this lighthouse alive for 40 years. Last night, you became its keeper. Maya looked up at the lighthouse. For the first time, she no longer saw a burden. She saw a purpose. The days became weeks. The weeks became months. Every evening, just before sunset, Maya climbed the familiar spiral staircase. She checked every gear, every cable, every bolt. Not because she was afraid something would fail, but because someone somewhere beyond the horizon was depending on that light. The lighthouse no longer reminded her of loss. It reminded her of responsibility. Sometimes, children from the village climbed the hill just to wave at her. She always waved back with a smile. One little girl asked, "Were you ever scared?" Maya smiled. Every single day. The little girl looked surprised. Then why didn't you quit? Maya looked toward the sea. Because courage isn't something you find. It's something you choose. Again and again. Years later, people who visited the coast would often stop and admire the old lighthouse. Many believed its greatest strength was the powerful beam that reached across the sea. But the villagers knew a different story. They knew the strongest part of the lighthouse was never its stone walls, never its giant lens, never its machinery. It was the heart of the woman who refused to let its light disappear. Every life has storms. Every heart has moments when the light seems to go out. But the brightest light is never the one that shines for you. It's the one you choose to ignite within yourself. That is why no storm could ever defeat Maya again. Because the lighthouse she rebuilt had first been rebuilt inside her. If Maya's story touched your heart, remember this: Life doesn't always send someone to rescue us. Sometimes, quietly places the tools in our hands and waits to see if we'll believe we can use them. If the story inspired you, type "I choose courage" in the comments. Someone reading your words today might find the strength they need. And if you believe stories can change lives, please like, share, and subscribe to Glowing Flame Fire, because every week, a new story is waiting to remind you that no matter how dark life becomes, your light can always shine again.